Thursday, April 26, 2018, Monaco 64, home of alternative economics and contrarian views. Aside from looking at the markets today, I want to look at this book called The Empire of the City by E.C. Knuth, The Secret History of British Financial Power. And along with this book, I'm going to look at tell you about a documentary I saw yesterday, and it's entitled The Spider's Web, Britain's Second Empire, and it complements this book very well. So let's quickly have a look at what we're doing this morning. Spot gold is $13.2470, just up over $1. Silver $16.58, up about 3 cents. The Dow is down about 2 points, 24,082. S&P up 3.5 at 2643. The Nasdaq is up 50 points. The Nasdaq 100 future, that's up 0.75%. Currencies are fairly quiet this morning. The pound is down about 5 pips at 139.25. The euro is 121.67, and the dollar is down about 10 pips against the yen at 109.31. So fairly quiet morning so far in Europe. The 10-year yield has backed down a little bit to 3.01, so we're still above 3%. I think the high recently has been just around 3.03. So keeping an eye on that 10-year yield, important indicator. Before I go into the book, The Empire of the City, and the documentary, I want to talk a little bit about the financial crisis of '08 and what I told people at the time when I worked in the city and other friends, family, about what really happened back in '08 and in the wake of that crisis. All the bailouts, all the programs, all the central banking extreme policy of money printing, QE, whatever you want to call it. Well, what happened is that the financial powers, Wall Street, City of London, Frankfurt, all central banking world, the fiat money, the financial aristocracy, their system imploded and it was going to collapse. And basically what we did as taxpayers, as citizens, we allowed Congress, we allowed Parliament, and by allowing, I'm saying, we didn't have much choice. But what they did is the system was imploding, everything was collapsing, which I think would have been a great thing to collapse this system of financialization. And you see why when I talk about the empire of the city and what is really behind the real power behind what's going on. And at the time I said, by bailing out these the system, we're basically lending money to governments so they can take that money and give it to the banks and to the central banks so they can keep operating. And then this debt that we've taken, it's put on our backs, not on the backs of the people that made the mistakes, the financial system, the banks, the central banks. They get the money and they become even more powerful and they enslave the general public even more. And that's why inequality is getting bigger and bigger. In capitalism, free markets, which we don't have, if you fail, you fail. No one should bail you out. But we did, as taxpayers, bail out, and we're still paying the price for that. We've been left with all the debt, all the liabilities, and the 1%, the people that benefit from this system, they're laughing all the way to the bank. And the city, the empire of the city, that's how the mechanism of how they keep their money from the taxpayer. So the City of London. And by the City of London, I don't mean London, Greater London. I just mean the square mile. And you can even go to their website, cityoflondon.gov.uk, and it says the city's government. And you read here, the oldest continuous municipal democracy. It says the City of London developed a unique form of government which led to the system of parliamentary government at local and national level. Its constitution is rooted in the ancient rights and privileges enjoyed by the citizens before the Norman conquest in 1066. So it says that London enjoyed certain freedoms and had a form of civic administration before the Norman conquest. Can be seen in the charter granted by William the Conqueror in 1067, in which he promised to recognize the rights, privileges, and laws that the city has enjoyed since the time of Edward the Confessor, 1046, 1062. So basically the square mile, the City of London, is an independent municipal commune or area. It is separate to the laws of the United Kingdom. And it was given this right in 1066. And I'll read a little bit about this book here on the back. And it says, The Empire of the City. The author presents a behind-the-scenes look at the secretive international policies of the British government and how their past success allowed them to rise to the top of a vast secret order of world finance. According to the author, he has pieced enough information together presented in this book, which clearly shows that a colossal financial and political organization is run from an area of London called the City. And he's right. It's public information. You can go to their website and they tell you. Due to this power, the city is claimed to operate a super government of the world and is said to play some kind of role or have influence in virtually every major world event. This book provides a bird's eye view of British international finance and how it really works behind the scenes, hand in hand with various governments, political figures, and financial organizations. So what is the financial arm of the City of London? Well, it's the Bank of England. Have you wondered why the people in the City of London, the bankers, the Bank of England, they never get prosecuted? Because they are a law unto themselves. They don't run by the laws of the United Kingdom. They are William the Conqueror gave them that privilege, and they still have it. Do you ever wonder why we have proof that the Bank of England was involved in the LIBOR scandal, that they pushed the bank executives to rig that market? And yet, nothing's been done. Bank of England is left alone. And on page 98, it says here, in one of the conclusions, this is obviously merely a precise rewording of the ambiguous provisions of the law of England, which, as variously developed here in before, have placed the Bank of England over and above legislative action heretofore and made it a sovereign world super government, with the House of Commons prohibited even from discussing its activities, while the House itself was subject to the orders of the executive as to the legislation required by the city. Thus, goes on to say here, thus the denizens of the city, who have heretofore been obliged to exist in furtive secrecy in the dark recesses of the Bank of England, are now able to abandon their lair to move into the magnificent structure of one world omnipotence erected by their henchmen to rule their world realm in recognized and sublime dignity. Well, this is in relation to the IMF and the Bretton Woods system that was set up by the same people that run Wall Street in the City of London. And I think this is what we're seeing now. We're seeing that Russia, China, the mechanism they're building for trade in Eurasia, one world, one one road, one belt. That's a threat to the empire of the city. And that's why I think there's so much Russophobia, so much provocation against the Russians, because these people know what's happening. And this system, actually, that the financialization that we've had, if you look at in 2007 and 8, a lot of the crisis was centered around London. AIG almost brought down the whole, well, they had over 180 billion in losses. It was their financial products arm, AIG Financial Products, that was run out of London. And you, the US taxpayer, had to bail that out. And how does London do it? How does the city of London get away with it? Well, because the city of London is run through by medieval laws. So it's an oligarchical medieval system. And they use trusts to hide behind all their operations. So trusts, you never know who's really behind the ownership of the assets. And that's why I also recommend you watch this, thespiderswebfilm.com. I'll put the link below. You have to pay to watch it in Vimeo. You can rent it for like 72 hours. I think it was only £3 for me. It's probably about $5. I highly recommend it. And they basically, this is what they say here. Just a little summary of this documentary, and I read it. It says, The Spider's Web, Britain's Second Empire, is a 78-minute featured documentary about how Britain transformed from a colonial power to a global financial power. So in this book, they talk about both the colonial power and global financial power. But as Britain, the colonial power of Britain kind of withered away in the 1950s and 60s with independence of all the old colonies, they had to focus on the financial power. And it says, at the demise of empire, City of London financial interests created a web of offshore secrecy jurisdictions that capture wealth from across the globe and funneled it to London. Today, up to half of global offshore wealth is hidden in British territories, and Britain and its offshore islands are the largest players in the world of international finance. So basically, you can do anything in the City of London, and the Bank of England will not, they'll just let you do it. If you're an American bank and you deal for, let's say, counterparties that are in Jersey and the Cayman Islands, you can do whatever you want. The Bank of England will turn a blind eye. So that's what's going on. And the point I made earlier about how the public bailed out this system, it just goes to show. We bailed them out. They take the billions and trillions of dollars and they put it offshore. And they're still operating from London. And also to some extent in the US, there's a lot of offshore money coming from abroad into the US, into jurisdictions, I think like Wyoming, I'm not too sure, even Nevada or Delaware. So it's not only in the UK, but also in the US and even in Europe, like Luxembourg. So that's what's going on. We're living under a medieval system. And that's why, and in the City of London, it's not even in the interest of Great Britain, the people of the UK. It's in the interest of the elite in this country, in the UK, the elite in the US, the elite in Europe. So that's what it's about. And that's why the Petro yuan is a great threat to this system. Is the Petro yuan slash Russian system, is it going to be better than this one? I don't know, but that's what's happening there out there. And I would highly recommend the book, and I'll put a link below also to the documentary. So if you enjoyed this video, please like, share it, subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet. Make sure you click on the little bell to get notified of my new videos. And you can also follow me on steemit.com, on DTube, and on Twitter. And I'll talk to you later. Bye.